Very good. All right, thank you so much for your patience, folks. We got a little technical issues, but we're good to go now. I want to welcome for the folks in the room as well as folks on Zoom. Sorry, we made you sit in the waiting room for a few minutes. So my name is Em Eiler. I do outreach and engagement for the development review process for the city of Fort Wallace. You may have seen me before at neighborhood meetings and planning and zoning commission meetings for this project as well. My main goal as an employee for the city is to offer a connection between members of the public who are interested in development and proposals such as this one. So you'll notice that my contact information is in a variety of places all over this room. It'll be in our slides at the end, as well as on a sheet of paper in the back called important links for participants. And for those of you on Zoom, I have a document that is the same that I'll put in the chat for you all, so you can make sure that you can contact me with any questions or concerns about anything related to development review. Tonight we'll be talking about a proposal that we are now calling Union Park. It was listed originally under Ziegler Corbett, and found a name for it, which is great. So now you can search for it on our website under this Union Park name. It is a proposal for a variety of different uses on this land between on Ziegler, between the mall and the English Ranch area. I'm gonna move on to our next slides. That's way too far. Talk a little bit about what the neighborhood meeting that we're having here today is meant to do, and go over our agenda very briefly. So the purpose of the neighborhood meeting is really just to allow a convenient space and time for neighbors who are interested to learn more about the project, as well as ask questions. We have a variety of different people here who can answer a whole slew of different questions that you may have about the project, including members of the applicant team and members of the city's staff. The applicant team is the group of professionals who propose this project to the city to be developed. The city then considers the project and applies the land use code standards to it, and approves it when it meets those standards. So we are at the beginning of that process with the city. We will go through several rounds of review, as well as required public input portions of that review as well. And then we'll get to a public hearing where the city will ultimately look at all the details, make sure that it applies to our rules and regulations, and grant approval and does so. Tonight we will be just very quickly going over our ground rules. Then I'll pass it over to the planner on the project, Ryan Mouse, and then we'll pass it to the applicant party. We're going to talk about exactly what their plans are looking like, and then we'll go straight into Q&A. I believe that we'll try to keep it pretty short in terms of the information that I'm putting out today, because we've talked to this group of neighbors quite a few times about this project, and most of you may have an idea of what the kind of basics are. Again, whatever questions we can clarify for you in the room here tonight, that's why we're all here. So we want to get plenty of time to get all those questions in. After that, I'll just very briefly let you all know what the next steps are, how to engage again, and how to make sure that you're keeping up with this project as it goes through this lengthy review process. Before we dive in, I have some very brief ground rules for you all. Most of these are just in the interest of making sure that everybody has a chance to speak in the time that we have allowed today. So you'll see Make sure that you're raising your hand so that I can call on people and people we haven't heard from can have their chance to speak. And try not to talk over one another. It just lengthens the process and ends up with too short of a time here tonight. When it comes to disagreement over details of the project, that is welcome here. This is the space to talk about those. Just making sure that we are critiquing things, we are critiquing the ideas that we have, the details, and not the people themselves. And then when it comes to the topic, there are a lot of things that have come up in these neighborhood meetings. One really good example for this project is going to be traffic. And we talked a lot about traffic in this project. And we're happy to hear more about the project, but we also, in the interest of kind of sticking with the project that moves forward, maybe want to move away from talking about traffic. But those are just my very brief ground rules. I really appreciate you all following them. I do have a little bit of a sore throat tonight, so if I don't have to yell over people, it'd be really helpful. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Brian, who's going to talk about the project.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Brian Nelson, and I just have a couple of slides. I want to just kind of again introduce you to a little bit of context and background on this project, because as Em mentioned, what it was known as Eco Orbit, it has been going through several years of review and process aspects of the proposal. So we'll walk through that just for anyone who's going to do this. So as I mentioned, here's just a little bit of a vicinity map showing the location of the particular proposal. So we're north of Target at Perkins Village, on the west side of Steve. The original site is kind of outlined in red, and then there was later on kind of a small expansion to it. So that's the red part, the solid red area on screen there. So now it's that full rectangle. That's the area.
Ryan, do you mind stepping a little bit closer to the mic as well?
Sure. So here's kind of a little bit of background on where this proposal has been so far. Over the last couple of years, the city has been reviewing what we call an overall development plan for this is kind of like a high level master plan for the site. So it kind of sets out the stage or sets the stage for what types of land uses are going to go there. Things like intensity or density of units, connection points. So where is connection to the site coming from? And things like stormwater, like general stormwater areas. This in and of itself doesn't, grant the applicant any ability to start construction, but the city requires these master plans when a project is going to be built. So that's what has been under review for the past several years or so. I see some familiar faces. I've been attending, there's been multiple neighborhood meetings, there's been multiple hearings, there's an appeal to city council. That has sort of ended within the last several months or so with the hearing. And so now what we're discussing tonight is what we call the project development plan. And so this is the actual stage of the process where the city starts to get, the finer details from the applicant. So we see things like their site plan, their advancement details, their architecture, those types of very specific things. And if that is approved, that's what actually would allow the applicant to go forward and actually start construction. So this is just a quick overview of what the ODP or the overall development plan was. Again, it's kind of, we call it like a bubble diagram. It just kind of sets the stage for where certain areas or certain types of land uses will be proposed in this thing. This is primarily a residential development, but there are some mixed-use components as well. So the residential is primarily on the, say, western two-thirds of the site, and then kind of on the eastern, there along Cedar Road, there are some office, there's some childcare, there's some mixed-use. Again, we call this a project development plan. It has a very similar kind of process and timeline to the overall development plan. So here this evening, talking at the neighborhood meeting, sharing information, gathering feedback and input. The city will be reviewing this proposal. Usually that's a very neighborhood process. It usually goes to the public meeting. And then at some point in the future, it will go to a public hearing. For this particular proposal, the decision makers, the planning and the commission, they were also the same decision makers for the PDP. So when it goes to that public hearing with PDP, we receive another letter if you get for this neighborhood meeting. That is public hearing. You can send any comments to the city staff and PDP, share that with the decision makers, and also show up at that hearing itself. After that, if the project is approved, they kind of come back and look at all the stage. That tends to be a lot of finalizing work on utilities, civil engineering aspects, and then they might kind of. With that, I'm going to hand it over to the applicant team.
Maybe, for those that don't know, we actually a lot of familiar through the rights of Jason Sherrill with Landmark Homes. Also here with me tonight is our civil engineer, Jason Plays, our planner and landscape architecture team, Mike Walker and Christine Meyer, that are traffic engineer, Matt Delp. So if some of the questions are beyond my reach, I'll certainly refer to those guys for questions. So the intent, as Ryan said, is to introduce you now, you know, because I think a lot of people are familiar with kind of the plan, or at least the intent of the project, but to provide a little more color or detail specific to what our plan is. You know, we'll introduce these things. I'll walk through some concepts here, what's happening in the plan, but then get to questions and answers. That's where again, we're a local home builder for those that don't know. We have developed multiple projects from Fort Collins to Longmont, Windsor, Greeley, Loveland. We focus a lot on attached homes. We have a current project in Fort Collins called Northfield. Very familiar with building and developing in Fort Collins, and we're very excited about this particular project because I think it provides an opportunity for us to kind of bridge a really healthy mix of product types and uses to a location that I think is, you know, it's time for this project to develop. It provides an opportunity for home ownership and renters to live and work close to schools, to jobs, to I-25, to recreation and shopping. So I think it's a great complement to kind of the overall city plan, is like, you know, the opportunity to provide housing within the community as opposed to the edge of town stretching into some of the surrounding communities. So this is what we would call an infill project. So we're very excited for this project. It's been a long time coming for a lot of you who've seen your faces, whether it be here in a room or virtually, getting to this point. So obviously, it's not clear. We're very excited to be at this point and excited to move forward. So the general plan, and I'll try not to block too much, but is the blue on top is our floor shell housing, which is for some that might have seen some of our earlier sketches that came out in the newspaper probably 2 years ago, but this is very similar to what our intent was. And so, you know, that detail is following through. But we have a combination of townhome products in the blue in 2 different parcels. The intent for having the townhome product, which there are 3-story townhome, 2 simple units on that part of the project, is to provide a buffer for the more intense apartment uses on the southern side of the project. As you guys know, I mean, we're at the backside of the Front Range commercial project. So, you know, that's a fairly intensive use, big, massive buildings. You know, so part of the concept is to use these larger buildings as a buffer to our home ownership opportunity with the townhome, but also to buffer the existing communities to the north. So again, the red, our apartment product. These along the bottom are our largest buildings. They're 4-story buildings. These kind of lighter red units are a combination of 2- and 3-story buildings. So the way those buildings work, the center is 3 stories, and then both ends are 2 stories. So we kind of have an articulation that kind of helps transition again these less, you know, kind of massive buildings with townhomes to a little bit bigger building than a larger here, kind of helping buffer that edge along Front Range. Along Front Range. And then again, on the very bottom here is a series of garages, which again helps kind of provide that edge again for our potential for future residents, again for the buffer from the commercial to the south. One unique thing that we've done is you see the symbol here, like those are garages. These red buildings are also garages, except they have apartments stacked on top of them. So that provides another opportunity to create that buffer. It's a really great product that we've seen in other places where in that homeowner or that renter actually has an opportunity to rent the unit right above their home garage. So it really provides a great opportunity for a mixture of uses. These larger buildings are elevator service buildings, so that also provides a lot of handicap accessibility for those types of users and just an overall, broader access to those different units on all 4 plans. These are just what you would call a walk-up product. So both internal and external. So the end units of these buildings actually have their front doors to the outside. So you actually walk into your unit from the outside. As opposed to the center, you're coming into an interior. So I mean, that's kind of the description of the residential stuff. Again, these are fee simple townhomes. We've done a lot of townhomes in the community, the front range. So this is similar to many of our other products. Again, these are 3-story units. They all have 2-car garages. So the residents, most of their parking will be within the garages. I will also offer down here to these apartments. These buildings also have 12 garage bays per building. And then of course you see a lot of detached garage, and then of course their service parking. If you don't mind, can I finish and then just keep your thoughts? Then on the eastern side of the project, which Ryan referenced, is more of that commercial nature of the project, which obviously makes sense. It's long Ziegler. Our main entrance is here, as most people recognize from other plans, opposite in line. To the south, we have a retail mixed-use building. The intent there is some kind of retail use on the first floor. The hope is some kind of coffee shop, little, sandwich shops. The intent not to be an office, but more of a retail opportunity. And then there's some apartments on top of that building, which creates that mixed use nature of that building. These are similar to the floor plan of these brownstones over here, but they're lived work. So the intent of that first floor is it's an office space. It's meant to kind of provide an opportunity for that artisan or that user that wants to have an office or storefront on the first floor and the residence on the second and third floor. To the north of that, then is more what you would call kind of traditional commercial. There's a 2-story office building here and a 2-story office building there, and then a 1-story daycare. If for those that have followed the project, a requirement of our MVP, we penciled in or kind of made it to the principal was to provide a daycare center. So we think it's a great complement to our potential future residents, but the rural area. There's a kind of an underserved population for daycare, so we think this is a great location. What is quite hard to tell you, it says detention. So these are detention ponds along the front. Managing offsite drainage and then onsite drainage is pretty complicated for this project. So here on the western edge is a fairly large detention center. For those that might have been familiar with some of our other concepts, this was narrower and then kind of a sliver back here. Working with our civil engineer and the staff, they really wanted to see a detention pond that became potentially more usable. So this one actually has a little open lawn here on the corner and then more of a pressure for detention. So I think that actually is ultimately becomes a complement to not just this project, but kind of the transition to English Ranch. This opportunity for people to come and actually have a usable green space within our community, but the middle of at the end of this kind of spine or our main street, we have a clock tower. So that's meant to kind of be kind of a symbol or just an emblem that, hey, I've arrived to Union Park, kind of as a visual destination at the terminus of the street. And that'll repeat itself here, right here at this entrance, which has the median and this kind of feature just to kind of begin to set the stage of here I am, it's Union Park. There's also here, kind of embedded within this apartment section is a fairly large clubhouse. It's the clubhouse and pool is for the apartment dwellers, but then there's also this almost 1 acre park here that is for everybody to use. So certainly our residents, but there's really no boundary access, so it can be used for people within the community beyond our boundaries and certainly our future residents. There's this nice spine, kind of pocket park, kind of leading you from the detention part here all the way through the project to the commercial. So we're trying to create in general, a very connected concept, right? So our residents through a combination of sidewalks along the street and through the green spaces have access, out to the edges of the property, but also to our commercial kind of retail space within the community. Anybody else?
You would mention, as I saw it on the phasing plan or approach of it,
Yeah, appreciate that. So really the intent here is to start with the first phase is to build the main spine road that'll connect forward to Ziegler. We'll focus on this first phase of the apartments here on the left. This will be the second phase. You can kind of see this yellow boundary right here. That's the first phase of the apartments, the second phase of the apartments. The first phase of the residential would most likely be this portion of the for sale, and then this portion, it could be kind of simultaneous for a first phase, or it actually might come a little farther down. Commercial, we don't do a lot of commercial. We have done some, actually, where our office is in Windsor, it's one of our own commercial projects. It'll be a little harder, it takes a while for commercial, projects, particularly in this market, to get absorption. So that probably will take a little bit longer. I can see the daycare coming fairly soon. That's going to be all market driven. The retail mixed use and the live work probably will be time to come on board or come online with the second phase of that project.
Okay, let's see if I remember. That's more. So you're saying the townhouses that are closest to the English neighborhood will be three stories? Because I thought in the past you said it'd be two in the people.
Yeah, this particular parcel, this was actually planned in the original presentation of 3 to 4 story in our ODP, and then this on our ODP shows 3 story. So we had been
But I
working.
mean, the ones that are the next door.
Yeah, this was 3 story on our ODP, and this was actually 4 story on our ODP. Now they're both 3.
Okay. And when you say 3 stories, that's in the basement level and then 2.
No, that's
Three
from
from the
grade,
ground up.
3 story.
And then question, so those, to get into all those townhomes, it looks like it's almost more like an alley, and I guess the front door is technically on the
Yeah, I
opposite side.
appreciate that. That's a good thing. So if you were to come down our main street, it's really important for us to put the front portion out onto the street. So that those are the front of the units all across here. Then there's alleys, and then these units all front that green space, so that kind of linear pocket park. And then these units front to the north. So, and that was deliberate picking here, of course, because fronting kind of onto the Paddington
Mhm.
pathway, and then of course it just continues right here.
And so
There's a
do
pretty
they all
public
get
setback.
garages then, 2-car garages or something like that?
Yeah, so all these are 2-car garages that are anchored to the house.
And so where would their guests park?
There's guest parking, you can't quite see it, but there's parallel parking along the main drive, and then there's some parking, recessed into it.
Okay. And then the big northwest corner there, the retention, whatever it is called, or area. Why do they do that? It's totally flat right now. I'm just curious. They're gonna make it all indented.
Yeah, well, first, we have to manage a lot of offsite drainage from other properties. And so we've got flows that come onto the properties we have to control. And so that's a lot of what this does. And then we gotta then manage the rest of our, now that we're developing the property, we're gonna have to create some control to manage all the detention or drainage that comes off these buildings and these streets. And that's managed in both these parts. Jason can speak more specifically, but a lot of this right here is to manage drainage off our property, that this property is required to take care of.
But you're gonna try and hope it can be used as a nice big green
Yeah,
space
so
to play in. and
Yeah,
things
so there's for sure, this is like a terrace, so this is recessed foot or two. How far is this?
It's probably 3 feet,
Okay, so this is the first, how far?
another 3 to 6 feet.
Okay, so this is obviously meant to really look and feel like detention, and this is meant to be used as a park, so it's depressed, 3 feet. But it's meant to be accessible and usable, and then we have a trail that's looping it, so it really wants to look and feel like a park. But this has a function of acting like a
I
detention.
mean, these are plans for like the dog park crazy.
We could, and that's part of the value of this conversation is that we can actually create a dog park. There'll be restrictions on fencing inside the detention pond itself, I suspect.
Yeah, nothing could inhibit the flow.
Yeah, so there'll be restrictions, and then if we wanted to do it here. I'd be hesitant to do that here, because I really want this to be a place that's open for people to gather and roam, so but it's something to certainly consider.
Just one moment, if you don't mind, folks. I just want to reach out to people on Zoom as well. If you have questions, you're welcome to put your hand up and I'll call on you, or you can put them in the chat if you prefer. I'll keep an eye on it.
How many units does the apartments have? How many bedrooms in each unit?
So there's a combination of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. I
So-
couldn't tell you the overall mix. But
You don't know that?
the old, like how many ones, how
Yeah,
many twos.
yeah.
There's a total of 457 apartments. 134 townhomes, there's 6 live work.
But of the 457 apartments, can you tell me how many are 3-bedroom, how many are 2-bedroom, how many are 1-bedroom?
We have that detail, I just couldn't recite it right now. I'll be happy.
How would I find that?
What I was gonna say, I mean, you can, if you have that information, you get it, so maybe we can just report out.
Yeah.
If we have those types of questions, I mean, we have to have those details reported us to the public hearings, so you can also contact me and myself. And we can share with you some questions like that. Just provide it.
There's another gentleman that's part of our team that's watching, and hopefully by the time we leave.
And then my other question is, for every bedroom, is there parking within that site for everybody who's gonna be there?
Absolutely.
Parking lots for everybody?
Yeah, there's actually, there's parking, so we have to meet a parking requirement with the town, so the city.
Parking depends on the number of bedrooms. So if you have more bedrooms in that. So there's parking requirements for both the residential, which they mentioned, and then there's also parking requirements for. And we look at it across the entire state, so we had all of those requirements.
So how do we find that requirement? I mean, so like if it's a 3-bedroom apartment, does that mean there has to be 3 parking spaces, or how do you do that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, again, it sort of scales, so it starts out with like 1 and 2 bedroom units, for multifamily, generally they're in the range of 1 to 1.5 spaces per unit, and then as you go to like 3 bedrooms, then you start looking at. I don't know what top of my head.
Are there half-cars?
There are not half cars, obviously there's not half cars, but what happens is if you have like 2 3-bedroom units and the requirement is 1.7 places, you know, across the entire site. That all gets added up, and obviously we get to an uneven number.
So I will tell you that we do know what our, I don't know off right now, but I do know the combination of our 3, 2, 1, and then our residential units, and we know what that parking requirement is. We've done the math, we're providing more parking than is required.
Are these all owned, including the apartments, or the condo?
No, these are for rent.
All the red is.
All the red is for rent, all the blue is home. So let me move to some other folks that, you have one.
Just one other question. This is all going to be affordable housing?
No.
No, I thought that's what it was supposed to be,
No.
but I missed that.
There's no required, our land use code typically doesn't look at sort of the financial aspects of the project, whether it's full for sale or the necessary income levels, things like that. There are certain incentives for housing projects, but they're really not required. So
That was the whole point of this.
I will tell you that, I mean, the apartments are market driven. The product, the for sale product as a home builder, we do focus on the missing middle, which is kind of maybe the reuse term, but it's trying to reach that 80 to 120% of AMI. So it is more affordable, but it's not token deed restricted.
And AMI stands for area median income.
Thank you.
I see how we have behind the one entrance into the development. Plan, behind the target. Or is it behind target, in the middle of the section, and to the north, to get into the development. I see the nuclear one building this one. I see the western one and the front tower, there's one road, there's 2 on the.
No, there's just this one.
Just that one. What about the north side? Is there any connection between the Havington and the middle version?
Yep. So you see here a street, and if you follow the ODP process of the appeal, and then are going back to planning and zoning, there's a requirement for us to build this street to our northern property line.
Right.
And that's as far as we're going. And then when this other person develops that property, there will be a requirement for them to make the connection between our northern boundary. Mr. Bartran, Dan Bartran, it's a family, I think. Go ahead.
If it doesn't develop, that one would be developed.
Potentially, yeah, I couldn't speak to that, but yeah.
Is there any? Are you looking at trying to break that?
No.
It's gonna be developed.
Yeah, we'll see from the city side, we have requirements for things that if and when that property does come in, we would have to extend that. But it is dependent on when that property comes in. So there's, we don't know if it is.
In that whole area.
No, it's hard to see, but there's a little, trickle or, trickle channel there. That edge right there, that's the size of the pipe. Is that kind of true?
And then the rest of that triangle is another
Detention.
detention.
All right, I'm gonna
The whole
take,
thing.
I'm gonna
Okay.
take a very quick moment to answer a couple questions in the chat. The first one is, why were there no single family homes as part of this development plan?
It was never our plan to do single family. Single family, did you say single family attached or detached?
It just said single family home, but I'm assuming they're talking about a
Yeah.
detached.
So we never had planned to do single family detached.
I thought you were gonna do the.
Oh, I think one second, say that, that's she was gonna.
Yeah, the next question was, where does the development connect to Corbett? And that is right here down at this bottom left corner. And that's the only connection to Corbett?
Yes.
And then, are there plans for additional school bus stops to accommodate the increase in children in the area?
No.
No. Those are all that I have for now.
I thought in your original plan, you were going to not just do two, I thought you were gonna do some duplexes. Some of them have their own development.
Yeah, and these do too, for whatever, for all these townhomes do have their own private yard in front of them. So every townhome,
Fenced in. with this-
yeah, no, they all have a little fence as their, kind of at their front, it's about 14 feet deep. Mike has done a lot of stuff for us, so they do all the blue have their own private yard.
But
And we
they'll
did
have
have,
to manage.
and there's no grass in there, so there's just shrubbery and plants, and so, and in the HOA.
But it's fenced in, so their dog will just.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did have duplex in the previous plan, and then we shifted to the front.
You had mentioned that garages on the townhomes are below the unit or.
They're at grade, so the first floor of the townhome is basically a garage, and then it goes into like a flex room. We have a variety of plans. Some of those flex rooms are like a fitness room, some actually have a bedroom. These larger units over here actually are ranch plans. So there's a variety of plans. So you come into the garage, you either have the flex room or actually bedroom. You go up a set of stairs to the living floor, and then you go up another set of stairs to the bedroom.
So I was trying to figure out the stories, we had mentioned that there's different stories for those.
Yeah, so these are, they're both three-story.
Sorry.
They're both three-story.
Okay.
So,
So the garage is considered part of the story or?
so the garage and kind of that flex space is the first floor. Then you have the living floor, which is the second floor, and then you have the bedroom floor, which is the third floor.
Do you have one unit then, that's what you're saying, or you have units and units?
No, so they're fee simple townhomes, so nobody is stacked. You share a party wall, but they're all townhomes. Well, all these units all have front porches. The apartment, all the units either have front porch or a balcony. Are you, Liam? It, I don't know exactly. I mean, we total of 600. It's a combination of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units in apartments, and a combination of 2 and 3 bedroom units in the townhomes. So it's really hard to forecast. A lot of our buyers, I will tell you, particularly with our for sale product, tend to be 55 plus. I do see that we'll probably get a few more of the kind of millennials or first time buyers here. We tend in our projects not to really attract families. I mean, if we do, it's probably older families with high school students kind of on the verge of moving out. But or might be young families with babies, but you can tell by our product type, our target is not necessarily, like, for example, young families with 2 or 3 kids. Yes. So if I could, hold on one second. We do have the bedroom counts. You had asked about the bedroom count next. So go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I'm going to share this information. I'm Mike Walker with the First Selector Planner and Landscape Architect obviously as well. As Jason mentioned, there's 457 total apartments. Out of that number, there's 45 studio apartments, 201 one-bedroom apartments, 159 two-bedroom apartments, and 52 three-bedroom.
3 bedrooms, 52 3-bedroom.
Yeah.
So the majority are the 2-bedroom units. Then we have, our studios and ones that are probably a third.
Yeah.
And then kind of the smallest portion is that's 3-bedroom.
And just a little bit more references, in relation to parking. There's over 1,000 parking spaces counting the garages, surface parking, parallel parking. And that averages out to about 1.6 parking spaces per unit.
That includes the 200 roughly.
Is that just on the red?
No, that's overall.
Is
So, yeah,
that
sorry.
counting garage?
I'm sorry?
Does that count garage?
Yes.
And that takes one, not that anything in front.
It's all parking space. So there are some parallel parking, there's of course the parking deals you can see here in the parking.
So there's no for gas.
There's lots of room for guest parking. So like this one here, there's all parallel parking, so there's a significant amount of guest parking.
So, the problem is,
For each apartment.
yeah, I mean, from
They would range, the studios are about 650 square feet, and then the 3 bedrooms, I think, are approaching 1,800 square feet. Chris is listening, so he'll correct me if I'm way wrong. On the townhome style units, they range from 1,400 to 2,000 square feet.
And I have a couple more online folks. Will there be a design for at least 1 extra parking space per unit? I think we talked about that. So the answer for that was it averages out to about 1.6 parking spots per unit. And that, according to the math, has space for guest parking as well as parking for everybody expected in the units. And then can you explain one more time why there is a planned daycare? Is it a city requirement or just something you'd prefer to do?
It's kind of a combination. We always had preferred the opportunity to develop a daycare, but in our ODP approval, we were required to make a commitment to provide daycare, which we're happy.
And then last question so far, what is the walking and biking connection from the development specifically to Front Range Village, other than major roads?
So there's a connection, it's hard to see here, but there's certainly sidewalk connections here, and we actually, we're gonna call this the Ryan, it's a little connection here, particular road. So we are trying to make a series of connections, on the sidewalk via the street.
That's a pedestrian.
Pedestrian connections, bike pedestrian, out to Ziegler. And then, of course, we have lots of sidewalk connections in here out to, Forward. There are no connections on the northern, or the southern boundary. We had entertained it, but quite frankly, there's a large detention here. There's a lot of truck traffic, on the southern part, and it just didn't feel like it's a safe place. And you can connect.
I do have a question though. I mean, it looks like you're overlapping the existing road and pathway. They're long for it because it comes to a little circle.
Yeah,
You're
I
right
think
on
it's
the
just
circle.
the graphic. I mean, we can't. It's not-
So that's staying as is,
Yeah.
and the walkway that's already there connecting.
Yep.
Isn't staying.
You had a question. I saw your hand earlier.
Oh, yeah, so the top ones, are those gonna be brownstone, like a brick facade?
I mean, there's we don't really do a lot of brick. I mean, there's just not a lot of brick. But there's a lot of stone. You'll see by the time we get through the process and we get to the public hearing, we'll have all our elevations done. But you know, you could believe, you could agree or not, but as a home builder, we take a lot of pride in our look of our homes.
Yeah.
And so
Did you send it to the farm?
we did our flash building at Rigdon Farm.
Okay.
So, you know, architecturally, it's gonna be very similar.
Yeah, and that's very nice looking spot. Okay, and this is not a big deal, but I was just curious if there's an option for elevators for sale. Have you seen those?
There's not.
Okay, because I've seen beach homes that got that footprint.
Yeah.
And it's hot ticket.
It is a great, it's just, it'll
But I
raise the
know
price of a home about 60 grand.
Yeah.
And
I just
really
didn't know
that, yeah, I like the idea. I don't think that's the right.
No, I was just kind of visualizing a beach. home.
There's the bottom edge here of the apartments all that.
And lastly, so in that detention area, in kind of the overall picture, but we're losing a lot of pollinator habitat, you know, since it's an alfalfa field. Would you be able to ever consider doing kind of a collaboration with Firefly and work with kind of some native stuff to bring back some of that? It's kind of the in thing, I think it's very marketable.
I love the idea. I'm not an expert, but we could definitely have our team think about what that seed mix might look like that we could do there. I think it's great.
Well, so a buddy I grew up with, I said, CEO of Firefly, and they are doing projects like this.
Yeah, they're doing a really cool one in Baseline.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I was kind of visualizing that kind of deal there, but it really is.
Yeah, I think as long as there's gonna be some requirements as far as what that material is to not restrict flow.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
But it feels like a very natural thing.
But yeah, I just think around the periphery of it, kind of slick, and I know the detention's happening boats, so you get really tough. Per se.
I don't know that that's not possible.
Okay.
We'll take a look at it.
But yeah, I mean, it's something to think about. I think it's kind of a trendy thing, but it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, that's fine.
I got you.
Just one of the things on the ponds is that we're strongly encouraged for them to be as kind of naturalistic as possible.
Okay.
So, working with Mike, we'll introduce some wetland seeds, stuff like that at the bottom of the ponds. And actually, like, I applaud every time I believe it's milkweed that I see that attracts the monarchs.
Oh, yeah,
And so,
that's the.
you know, like I've always, you know, so that's part of kind of that natural seeding.
That's a great opportunity.
Yeah, and then to follow on with that, I mean, we have a lot of space. You know, within the retaining walls in between, or some, you know, where we have required different plants anyways. I'll focus on that.
Yeah, they have a lot of, yeah, kind of a free package deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Appreciate the input. So Mike does have square footage specific, so we'll test and see.
Yeah. We were, So the studio bedrooms, apartments have 550 square feet. The one bedrooms are 650 to 800. The two bedrooms are 1,000 to 1,150. And the three bedroom apartments are 1,350 to 1,550.
So you got the 10. Right.
These were for the asking about.
Yeah.
And I am more than happy to send all of these numbers to you all if you put your name in the sign up sheet. So especially for folks online who may have trouble hearing all of the numbers exactly, or if you didn't write them down, I'll send them to you.
You know, that's a good question. It's. I can tell you the for sale stuff is probably a little, like it's from the time we start, to the time we finish, you know, it's 134 units. It's probably a 3-year window. The apartments, it's probably similar, whether those happen at the same time or not, it's hard to tell. I think the overall project probably won't look exactly like this for 5 years, probably want to take it, and I think, and when I say that, it's this stuff on the eastern edge, the commercial stuff, that always takes a little longer to get traction.
For those of you online, because this was a question in the chat as well, about 3-ish years for the townhomes and probably about the same amount of time for apartments. Whether or not that happens at the same time, we're not sure. Potentially a little bit longer for the full build out of this retail.
Yeah,
area.
and when, and let me rephrase, the apartments can be 3 to 4 years.
3 to
quite a
4-ish
few
years for apartments.
And again, those could be added on, it could be concurrent, it's hard to project.
I do have another question online. How much distance is there between the edge of this property? And I think mostly talking about the edges of the buildings on the property and the homes just to the north.
I don't know for sure, what is that?
Talk about this
It's
area.
Our property line, it's about 20.
20 feet from
There's,
here to the property line.
there's then more space. You know, from off north of our property line to the single family property line, which is probably another 20 feet, so I'm guessing everything like that.
So about 40 feet distance.
Lacey,
Go ahead.
I don't. Beyond property.
say that one more time.
Sorry, hello?
We could, but we don't intend it. Yeah, we really, there'd be no, the people that are currently leasing that space, want to lease it while they can, it's fine with us, so we really wouldn't. I mean, I don't, by the time, when we start and we put in this road, it'll all have. So it'll come down at the start.
So those northernmost buildings, their front entrance would face north, right?
Yes,
So that I think would look great, so if you're coming down Paddington, you're not gonna be able to see this backyard.
yeah, you're looking at architecture.
Right.
Right, and that was deliberate, so, yeah.
That's. So that could look really ugly, it's just that.
You may have already answered this question, but when do you plan to start construction?
As soon as Brian says we can start,
As soon as we say we can start.
I mean.
Add a little color there. So we can't say for sure because, you know, this is an unclear project. It's just right now. It's kind of an iterative process right now. Eventually it gets to the point where the planning for commission, they're the ones that have to, they're the decision makers. So they vote whether the project is approved or not, might have conditions, things like that. Even after that, we they have to come back with all 5, which is again sort of another iterative process where they're kind of finalizing this in their engineering. I don't know exactly, we're talking, you know, until the public hearing, it's still minimum several months, and then after that, final plan, that can be, again, maybe a couple months, 6 months. And then,
Certainly our hope is in 2020, but it's not gonna be in early part, it's gonna be slab.
Okay, so for folks online, the review process takes a different amount of time depending on the project, and it's hard to predict exactly how long it'll take to get through. But they're hoping to start, if all goes well, towards the latter end of 2024,
We're hoping starting.
In a ballpark.
Okay.
mid to late 2020.
Yeah, there
Thank
you
you.
go. That's good.
And you said you're breaking ground, you're starting.
Yeah, I mean, we'll really start with this spine road. And make the connection all the way forward, and then we'll start down here, and then as this starts to stabilize. We go through the clubhouse, then we'll move to this portion. The for sale could be concurrent, or if we just don't know when it might be.
We'll be managing the apartments.
So
Will it be Hartford? Or are they selling them
I hope
to
so.
someone? I don't know.
we're landmark, so.
Or Landmark, sorry.
I'm trying not to do
Landmark,
that. No, so it won't be us, we'll be
Are you
building. and
selling
owning-
the buildings or
No.
no?
So we'll build and own the apartments with
Got it.
partners. Right now, we do apartments and our property manager is called Gray Star, the largest property manager, one of the largest in the country, so that will be most likely. That's 7.
So it won't be worse.
That's good. I can pretty much agree, assure you. I don't have anything against them, but
And the townhomes, do they get access to the common space as well?
Currently, the plan is that they don't, it's just, there's lots of reasons for the department. But there's a couple of different shelters here, there's a nice playground here, you know, there's a lot of usable green space, so there's definitely some amenities.
Whatever HOA
specific-
fees there's.
Well, there's no HOA here, but yeah, they'll have HOA fees, but for someone that's been doing attached homes for 30 years, a lot of times when you have pool and all these different things, the rate the HOA do so much, it becomes a burden. But parks and playgrounds and shelters and places to gather are very, and that's what we have. to do.
So will there be trash collection at a big bin, or is it gonna be,
So for.
how is that going to be for the condos or townhomes, sorry?
So for the townhomes, it's all, you know, just like you bring the trash bin out on trash. The apartments will all have trash enclosures.
Okay. Thank you, restrictions of the alley. And that's-
No, there's
We got-
a
we
road
got a
here,
middle
there's a road here. So there's definitely looping patterns. There's no dead ends.
And is that road in between the townhomes big enough for 2-lane traffic?
If it's 26 feet wide, then there's aprons that separate from the edge of the road.
I'm sorry, there's what?
It's 26 feet wide, and then there's concrete aprons, kind of like a mini driveway
Mhm.
between the edge of the road and the garage.
So they could park outside.
No, not that. You park motorcycles.
So there's a road on the west side.
There's a road right here that's moving kind of north and south. So there's.
It's a little dead end.
Yeah, it's a little dead end. Which is part of the plan. We didn't really want that road on the edge of the property up against the tension ground of the homes up against the.
So will a truck be able to, not a truck, but a trash truck be able to maneuver
Yeah,
at the
so
ending?
in this case, they would drive down and they would back it.
Okay.
I have a couple of online questions. Do you have a guess at the price range for the townhomes?
So it's really hard to project now because you follow commodities pricing and moving up and down, but our goal is probably in the low 4s to the mid 5s.
Low 4s to mid 5s goal. Okay. And then this question is a little bit longer. Many people have said this development will lower the property values at English Ranch. Do you have any reasons why it could actually be beneficial for English Ranch?
My reasons are, we do a lot of this stuff. Every community we've ever developed in, the housing prices have gone up, including single family housing. So I couldn't recite specific data, but our projects have never eroded property values surrounding our communities.
And then the last two questions both have to do with the connection between English Ranch at Paddington and this property, Ryan. Do you want to talk a little bit about what the city decided there?
Sure.
And do you mind stepping a little closer?
So I'm gonna do a little bit of background again. Sorry, this is a repeat for some of you. The very first overall development plan that PDP that came through, there was only going to be a bike and ped connection. City's land use procedures required a street connection, but there is something called compliance that was applied for and originally granted. And that kind of goes back to a little bit of history. There's been a lot of different policy discussion on whether there should be a street connection from this site to the English Ranch neighborhood. So kind of following what was in place at the time, staff recommended that alternative compliance with the applicant team, and that was what was. Then the major amendment to overall development came back and was under review. Initially, that same connection was left off the table. It's going to be bike and ped only. That decision was with the city council, and we got some updated policy direction from council. And they remanded that issue back to planning and zoning commission. And so the decision was made at that time to put that connection back in. So that connection kind of heading more up to Paddington Road again, that is what's kind of uncertain the exact timing of that, because it's dependent on that project to move development. We know there's really mixed feelings on that connection and potential impacts of that. One of the outcomes of that connection though is that there eventually will likely be whenever it's made, there's likely going to be a warrant for a traffic signal between Ziegler and the Paddington intersection, which is different from the very first or one of the iterations of the traffic signal on Ziegler had on from that being interested in this. So that's kind of a little bit of background on where we did. The connection itself is a land use code standard, and we do value sort of that connectivity between developments and neighborhoods. And that's kind of the direction we got from the city council. So it is in place, it will be constructed to the edge of this property. And again, the full connection will only be made in that marginal property.
I typed a little summary of that in the chat, but feel free to chat me if you would like more details.
Yeah, but I didn't know that off. So the, you know, and this could change, so don't take this as verbatim. There is also an ODP for English Range South. So for community in that neighborhood, you also have your overall development plan. And it identifies that parcel for multifamily, small multifamily, things like a triplex. But there could be consideration to change if something else, like maybe extending the patio as well. So we're still, until we get those details from the property owner, we just don't know exactly what's going to go there and the exact.
What if they put those patio homes in there, like the other patio homes fit in that?
Yeah.
They would be backing up. They would, there wouldn't be any, we would need, a patio home to back up to our area. So Edmonds would not be able to go there if they designed it that way. We wouldn't let them do that. We would say the road is going to.
Yeah, they would be required to make that straight. And that's all.
Can I show you where I live? And it's right here in the middle, okay? You see where my.
Let me point.
Right there. You see where my backyard is
Our,
right
our
there?
bedroom is about 40 feet from that road.
You wanna put that road through. Right, right behind my backyard. The stub will be 6 feet from my back fence at the most.
There won't be a street. That's the code requirement. You know, the street will
What
be
appeal?
immediately adjacent.
What?
But the tree lot, and I realize that's not a park or anything like that, a really large landscape strip. It won't be the, you know, past the sidewalk.
There's no room. There's no room for that. The stub that's on Paddington. You can see right where it's at. And where it's gonna line up. And you can see right where my backyard is, right there, right there. There is no room there.
There is room, English Range South, that's specifically designed for actually wider.
So what is my, can I appeal that to the city or whatever?
The time that we can appeal to them didn't do this finance.
Okay, so I think my appeal is to Bartran, please don't feel it. Don't feel it there. I don't want that street behind my bedroom.
Totally understand.
See,
And we can work, you know, there might be a little bit of extra space because again, initially the idea was that it would be flat. And now it's designed. Small bit. So again, we don't know the exact timing and these specifications until the part of it. There might be some places in there where, so again, maybe a slightly wider one, things like that, but again, the idea and the intent is that there is a school.
and I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 streets going out right there behind me. Those 3 streets that are in the townhome area will cut through there.
There's just proposed just this one street.
Yes. They will all go to those streets, they will all go to that middle one and cut out on that. To get out of the neighborhood.
there is the potential, yeah, that people can use that, especially if there's a signal in the future. There's
Yeah.
also the
There.
entrance on Ziegler, in the middle of this.
So my value of my home for them.
I don't agree, but that's. okay.
I agree. No, I'm sorry. You put all that traffic right behind my backyard. My patio area that is completely a hardscape and area that's all backyard. We won't even be able to sit in our backyard.
You had a question over there?
Well, hypothetically, if I buy part in this parcel. For the record, you wouldn't utilize any of the room to get that through.
That would be a city decision. You know, I can just say generally, that's not something the city likes to do, but they and
Right.
it's not on behalf of the private. It's, you know, the city trying to expand something.
Right, I just wonder, because that would be a huge commitment. It could be very, very wild. But not if there is the private and the domain, you know. Not that I wouldn't do it, I'm just hypothetically.
So that's why we're, you know, we're having to be a little bit vague right now. We don't, you know,
Right.
exactly what our ideas for the site are, and if it might improve the development, sell it, same with this.
Okay, I was just curious, because I know. the
Yeah, I'm
domain is
curious.
something. Right.
Maybe you have a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sounds like, in order to get the money, you need more. You need the private, and the private, you know, and the road. So the development itself, then we need that. I can say if we don't. Then it's like fuel agreements.
So this is kind of rehashing a little bit of what happened in that, the PDP process. You know, if you think about the traffic numbers in the city, so a lot of these different local streets from multiple different developments kind of need to be collector streets. Collector streets meet with the arterial, and that's generally the place where things like traffic signals are designed and intended to go to those traffic. Because of space requirements, safety things, and like that, is not every intersection is directed to traffic signal. So these kind of collector and that's what Covington says. Those are kind of designed and intended to be impaired. And using the traffic, they get for signal.
But even though all of them come down driving. That. So you're looking back, that's on, when you're back, you know. Probably.
It's not uncommon. There's a lot of collector streets throughout the city that have like this.
But it's not directional. Now you can't have. For. I mean.
You can have, yeah, I mean, it's what's kind of, you know, there's different cross sections with different types of collector streets, and those have changed throughout different decades. So Paddington is an open collector, so it's not up to, you know, the current collector street standards, but we have lots of those, especially in the midtown.
Is there any other questions specific to the Union Park project? Or any other chat?
I don't have any other chat questions at this time.
This is for you. Did you say if we asked you to send us a copy of this?
Yes, so, you know, when they submit updated rounds to the city, again, this is a very different process, so things are likely to be changing up into engineering. Feel free to email Emma, myself, and we can send you everything that they send us. So we can send it out.
Put this in particular so we can look at it.
Yeah, right now it's not that informal, that we should compare it to this.
Oh.
So we still have work to do as we compare our opinions, so I wouldn't share this yet, because inevitably there'll be some tweaks. And we'd rather, you know, when we get to our public hearing, that would be something.
Yeah, I just.
You might-
want a copy so I can show them.
I mean, you can come up and take that.
I took a picture, yeah. So she.
I have very brief comments, regarding the pollinators, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
feel like it.
when we got a grant from the city to redo the entrances on our side, Eagles Ranch. It was really the best of us being able to, you know, pollinator and ropes and that sort of thing. So, from that information, I was curious, when you build that into the shrubbery that you do around the terminals and rest of
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that my critique is more specifically, I'm actually a nice architect too, but I've long forgotten that trade. But there are definitely certain plants we use. There'll be a nice variety of different plants, shrubs, trees, and so forth that attract wildlife and just create color in different seasons.
So I think
So,
that's
yeah.
an easy thing to do.
But I think Mike's idea, is there's walls, step walls in this space here and actually in the front too. But in between those walls, it's gonna be a great place to plant those pollinators. I think it's a cool idea. And as much as we can, we'll try to do things here at the bottom of the extension pond to really attract it, because we've done things, I made the mistake in my own yard, like butterfly bush, and you can't go out the front door because the bees are gonna sting you, so we gotta be careful about
Right.
some
Yeah.
places, you know?
But you know how to do that. The
Yeah.
other two things I had was, just reminding of you. So I live in the first phase of the ranch, and we don't get any of these communications from these letters. But they say that every woman knows, you can share it with me. And it turned out to include all of the English ranch residents from the first to through Paddington.
So the mailing notices, that's also kind of spelled out in the code, what we're supposed to do. And it does, potentially, not that, we want everyone to know, obviously, but it does cost extra funds. Like that. So what we can do is if we know when you sign up for yourself, if we have your information and sign-in sheet, or if you have friends, family who are also interested in this, we want to add those details. Include that, send it information to me, and we can just manually add that to our list. And that seems to be the best way to follow this, really. We also,
Put a start on the under the sheet in the back.
if you put your name on the sheet in the back and,
I'll just send a notice out to everybody who signed in tonight.
so, and we'll
For the
send,
next meeting.
everyone on the sign-in sheet. And then again, feel free to update us, our spreads, and also.
We have another one. Yes.
We also post in the Coloradoan as well as on our website. There's a link to that website on the important links document that's in the back of the. Back of the room. Yeah, of course.
None of them are deed restricted or affordable. The single family or the for sale is what we would say is being priced at attainable. In that 80 to 120% range, but not 80 to 120%.
And then that is certainly.
I mean, it's certainly, there's townhomes, have 2-car garages, that have front yards, they're 2 or 3 bedrooms. We don't restrict things. We have just found over 20+ years, 30 years of doing this. Our product tends to favor kind of 55+ empty nesters, singles, widows, young families, maybe with a baby, but it doesn't really cater to.
A third comment is, changing. I just want to comment that I feel like there's been a lot of thought on the part of landmark and the staff to do this right. And one of my things that we can see that, I
Appreciate it.
congratulate you on that, from what I'm seeing here.
I mean, our team has worked really hard to. I think it's gonna be a great place. And is there impact with some residents that are closer, of course, but, there's a lot of things that could happen here. I mean, it's the HC zone, could have been all office buildings, commercial, and multiple stories. So all things considered, I really think this is gonna be a great complement. And our hope is, particularly with the commercial stuff on the eastern side, those become uses that you all can take advantage of, that you can walk. Right, without having to cross over in front of the, whether it be daycare, office spaces, dental offices, whatever the case, the mixed use. I really do think that it can become a very vibrant, active portion of the overall community.
Especially for the flight.
Yeah.
Why this-
Yeah.
So that we have kind of just a default streets behind the target and front range. Is there any talk about trying to restrict that?
Restrict it in what way?
To the regret protection?
That would probably become more of an issue for park itself. Is their service access entrance, designed for semi-safe active. Someone coming parking back there, things like that, but obviously it's not a public street, it's private. So really it would be up to the parking village. They need anything about that, and then also, I guess on the city side, I'd have to go back and look if there was any consideration of that, if there were any connectivity needs, smart regional use. But at least right now, I'm not aware of any changes. The one potential change that might be an outcome of this particular placement is potentially people could still either use that, or they might use this kind of east-west route through this particular site if they're accessing something like that.
I've been attending these meetings. I was meeting in January on the project. Planning and zoning commission meetings on it. Every one of those became about things about like at Paddington, Bradenton, is this a done deal to get this undeveloped parcel immediately north of this project? If there has to be a connection with it?
Is it a 100% done deal? No, I mean, there's always an opportunity for a different P and Z or field city council to consider that when the marketing properties coming through this review process. What's, this particular project development plan that the city is going to have to do, it has to conform to the overall. That's proven. If any more changes to that, unless Jason and the plan comes back, they want to change. So they are going to be building, if this PDP is approved, that stub to the very northern property line. That's kind of the end of their responsibility in terms of the construction of this site. What then happens is we wait for the Bargeman property or the future property owners to develop that grant for the city's process. And that's where the city will be looking at it, again, because it's a land use requirement and complete that. Could it change? It's possible, but it seems unlikely.
Can an existing neighborhood English branch, could we ever, because we built out, could we ever, apply for alternate compliance to the 363?
It's something that, it's kind of an obligation of this particular property.
Right.
That's when it was supposed to be, this lot was supposed to be non-retail business, which is much less people in the traffic and little interest in things than you. Now we're a whole different type of scenario.
Well, and going back to some of the policy history on having that connection, the Corbett connection or not, a lot of that came about after Farmers Village was consideration of the traffic to the retail center. And so that's what the original OAP was trying to follow, so the policy guidance against that. Council removed that connection, that's just straight to the connection. And then when this appeal happened to the major amendment to the development and current council got some new direction, updated direction from the state, and really consider this having this not a collector's connection. Again, that's really the default standard that staff has to make. So, again, I can't say with 100% certainty that it could change in the future, but at least our most recent direction. Over the past couple of years or so, I talked with him, and it sounds like he has ideas, but I can't really speak for him.
He hasn't submitted anything.
Nothing, no, nothing.
And he said it would be well.
So on the overall development plan for English Ridge South, it's identified, it's just given the size of the site. You're not going to say large thing. Because there is a local street right there that gives less room to produce something large. So it could be smaller scale.
Since it's virtually impossible that Edmonds won't go through there, at what point does the city start planning for the impacts of that traffic through English Ranch? And have you guys started anything? Well, they don't have to. I mean, they know it's gonna happen.
So, yeah, if you think
So,
but if you think of like this review process for this, again, I can't say for certain, but if and when this comes to the review process, they're not having to do it immediately, so that, they're gonna have to go through their own project development plan, which each project is different, but generally takes 6 to 12 months on average. So there will be a lot of planning that the city cities that have that basically is going through what's the actual prescriptions of that. So, you know, there are things like traffic signal, any additional measures that actually controlling this, you know, the city's gonna have.
And I'm talking more about the impacts through English Ranch and Foxstone and those other neighborhoods. Because we know that that's gonna generate a lot of traffic through those areas. And prior to the appeal process, I contacted the planning department to find out, have they done any traffic studies as to how much traffic through those neighborhoods this will generate? And I was referred to the traffic operations department, left a message for them, and nobody ever called back. So at what point?
So what type of mitigation are we thinking? This is one we do have, I'm Steve Gilbert, from the city for public. We do work with neighborhoods on a regular basis to mitigate traffic. We've actually have some mitigation within Sunstone, within English Ranch, we have some speed bump, we have some speed displays. So there are mitigation measures already in place. What beyond that is kind of the question. We're always going to look at this.
Right, and I'm mostly interested in, do we know how much traffic that's gonna generate through those areas? And at the appeal meeting, I think the question was asked, how much is that gonna generate? And I think the answer was that we have no idea.
We can estimate, we can, so what we do within the traffic study is we basically look at their uses, you know, the multifamily, the single family, all retail. We take it and what we do, it's called an IT trip generation. They have studies that actually look at these types of facilities and kind of determine how many trips those generate. And so they look at those averages and we take that study and we actually distribute that based on connectivity, those types of access points, and see where that traffic's going. Now, the caveat on that, it's just an estimation. We can't say for certain that it's going to be specifically 500 cars on the street.
Right.
So it's one of those estimations, but it's a pretty good one, because like I said, these are based on actual studies on existing facilities that they provide.
So have they done that?
The
Based
traffic
on-
study,
based
no.
on this.
So we have a traffic study for the ODP, and that's one of those things where they've done the
Right.
trip generation.
Yeah.
As they come through this, one of the things we'll look at to make sure what they plan in ODP is consistent with what they're planning now.
Right.
So is the trip generation gonna be the same? The other piece is.
Yeah, and sorry for interrupting, but I've looked at that and what it shows is all the traffic going over to Ziegler and on Paddington, but it doesn't show any counts for anything going to the north or to the west.
And that's one we'll look at now. That's where we haven't still studied fully yet. And with this now, it's within the ODP, it was tough to say where traffic's gonna go. Because there is no connection. We don't have an actual connection.
Okay,
And
so this is,
even now, we don't know how much traffic's actually gonna go there, because there isn't, you know, in their short term, there's not gonna be any traffic. Unless Bartran comes forward saying, I'm gonna develop this, we can't. necessarily sign
except that
traffic.
the city council has already dictated that they want that to go through.
Yeah.
So they can't plan for
Well,
that.
They've been saying
Okay,
that
so-
for 20 years. And Bartran has no nothing to do.
Well, he's already working.
Long term, we can assign a certain percentage of the traffic to, say, to the west on that.
Okay.
or to the north.
So did I hear correctly that once this is submitted for approval, that's when that study would kick in?
Yeah, the study hasn't been done yet for this PDP.
Will require a second study for,
Is that?
will require an updated study for the PDP and the one that's,
Yes.
okay, so
So,
happy
so,
to
but-
send that
so
to us
just,
as well
just
when
a
it
couple
comes in.
things on the studies is, and it kind of depends on their phasing too. We haven't fully scoped this out yet, but with some different phasing, it could be where we're only doing a study for the phasing. Piece, and that's where it all depends. We haven't scoped that yet. We want to get through the neighborhood meeting, because we want to listen to the residents in these areas and find out what else we may need to look at. And this is one we can definitely take a look at in this study. But like I said, some depends on phasing. Retail is also another kind of question mark to make sure, since they don't know exactly 100% certain what's going to go in those, if it changes a little bit, that could increase traffic, decrease traffic. That's when those actually get submitted for, okay, what's going to be going there. You look at those volumes and say, okay, yes, you're consistent with ODP, or you're not. And make adjustments.
And do those studies include the potential for cut through traffic to get to Front Range Village
From English Ranch?
from everywhere and
Yeah,
That's-
we can
Because
account.
we have.
not just
connector
English
streets
Ranch, but
All over, I think I counted 11.
that go through English Ranch. So there will be a lot of traffic, not just from English Ranch, but from beyond that, that's gonna cut through there. Come down
I think it's
Kingsley.
beneficial For Jason's project, but also for that cut through, because as much as I hate to say it, I'd probably cut through to go to Lowe's. I don't want to, I'm used to going one way, but gosh, it's tempting. And I just don't think it's fair for the city to require Landmark or Jason to have to connect, because I just don't think it makes sense for either of the major parties. Real quick too, something that needs to be looked at. Kingsley Road, and for the traffic flows, 85th percentile is 32. Adding its traffic flow now. So 32, 5 over the threshold, 30 is considered a speeding. When we're up to 32, with speed bumps, so that to me is concerning. Because we have a park, and that's a thing that everyone's excited about.
And then the school.
And the school. The other thing I'm really, is that 24 block of Sunstone has a very active school crossing there that's unmarked. And the last traffic study that was done, the county was placed right at the choke point there, was done in the summertime, where we're still under lockdown. So no school traffic, and quite a bit reduced traffic because of July 2021. So, you know, I'm not fully locked down, but so hopefully there will be an upgrade study here. Yeah, and if anything, no matter what, really we should be a school's only place. There are kids coming out, it's unmarked, it's just a speed limit. There's a side entrance to the grade school. You know, I mean.
So you're talking about the access path that goes to.
Yeah, that little one.
So one of the things when you look at those crossings, I mean, that's where, so our school zones are really focused on the crossing, the place where kids are actually going to physically cross.
Right.
When we do that, we're looking at, really, the intent is to slow traffic in that area where essentially younger students can't judge a gap. Ultimately, you know, the safest way to be cross any street, I'll tell you right now, is a gap. No matter if crosswalk, signal, whatever, if there's a gap in traffic, that's your time cost. The thing is, we look at crosswalks, we look at those types of facilities when those gaps don't happen, or in the case of especially elementary and younger students, they can't judge. They see a car, they're not certain whether they're how fast they're going, so that's where we look at reducing those speeds. The thing with Sunstone in that area, very tiny street, as you know, built more to a local standard. Trying to reduce the speed, I mean, it's already close to 25. Probably not gonna do much good, it's probably not gonna slow down as much as what's there.
Yeah.
So, and the other piece of that too is, in order for crossing, you know, to be ADA compliant, which we have to do now, you have to put a ramp on the opposing side, and you also have to remove parking next to those ramps, so that's why we're very cautious.
That
Because
was
of-
kind of informal too, that's the weird.
Yep, that's kind of informal, just access, you know, built more to a local standard where hopefully kids can easily cross there. If not, you know, there's always the chance that they walk down to Caribou, cross under the condition of the stop sign and go directly to the front of school, and access it that way. They're not comfortable crossing mid-block. On the backside too, I can't remember the street, that goes to the north and it's kind of the park. There's an access to the park there. It also allows kind of a secondary access to the backside of the school. So there's some options there. It's just one of those, putting those crosswalks, especially in those smaller residential areas, it's tough, especially with driveway accesses and then residential parking, those people on those different parking ways. So
Well, it's very dense.
it's very dense, very tight driveways, you know, maybe one car, 2 cars if you park in the south system. We could look at it, but it's one that I don't imagine if I put a crosswalk there, but if there's a need, we can study and evaluate, number one, the speed, volumes, and then look at, you know, is there some way to mark that as a school area? We can possibly.
Yeah, just some-
schedule signs.
And
Those are
most
things we
everyone knows that every now and you get a guy from the GPS route that doesn't realize.
On that.
All kinds of things that's been, made me think a lot about, have you as the developer given much thought to what is likely to be customer growth? Not just from English Ranch, people who live the development on the other side of the big where they talk about, they want to.
Yeah, so-
They want to be able to get it. They want to be able to get it.
Yeah, I mean, I did our
I
opinion about it.
So do they meet standards for that? And I mean, traffic, you've got, what, 1,000 parking spots, so you're gonna have a lot of. You've got affinity that's gonna look at that and say, finally, we can get the horse to move.
Yeah, so our opinion is, and it was, I think it was repeated by some of the planning and zoning commissioner, that, and I was looking at my own traffic, that if I'm gonna be here and I wanna go downtown, I'm not gonna go from the train. I'm gonna go the fastest way to go, and I'm gonna get on the major thoroughfare, and I'm gonna get. and I-
Everybody wants to.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
believe
we
that's,
like.
if you asked, the question was, are we considering that a concern about it? You're not.
Does it meet the standards for that kind of?
Our streets meet the
Might be.
standards for our traffic.
So if this, internal to this development, they're proposing private streets. So they will bear some of that maintenance responsibility for any traffic, so. They have an interest in from that financial aspect. But those are gonna be engineered streets, so they're gonna integrate. So those are gonna, be able to withstand the traffic and just like a lot of, private drives.
The reality is that the volumes are tough because there isn't a hard fast standard saying once it reaches this volume, it's automatically changing or something like that. The volumes, really, we're looking at a typical local street, up to 1,000 vehicles a day, even more in some streets. And throughout the city, we have varying volumes throughout, locals, collectors, some carry more, some carry less. But there's no hard and fast standard saying we won't carry this much. That triggers something else. Same with our neighbor traffic mitigation program. There's nothing that says we absolutely have to mitigate traffic. It's one we work with all neighborhoods, we work with local streets and collectors. We don't do much on arterials, just because we leave that for enforcement, but we work within any neighborhood area. That's the little focus for our neighborhood traffic.
So we don't.
Neighborhood.
As the traffic is based on. So this is traffic commission meeting or traffic department look at things like.
So one of the things that they would look at doing, if the congestion that the roundabouts too great, they will be included in that. We're going to try to front traffic to the collector. You may have some that reverts to those streets, but as most people say, it's quicker to stay on the arterial, even if it's congestion. Just because going into a local street, trying to navigate through, come down Kingsley to Paddington, down Edmonds, down to their internal street, and back, most people aren't. Especially from the Ziegler area, they may cut in on their street, coming into directly to say north side of the O's, into the access from the Target. Just because that's probably quicker and it's probably gonna be less congested than that local Target, with people coming in. We don't really anticipate, diverting traffic from an arterial. It doesn't happen very often. I mean, there might be some, but it's not gonna be.
Well, if you look at the things on the other side, it's kind of like one way in and one way out. It's really, when you're.
So that's a fine example of an area where we missed the boat on connectivity. You go north of Horse Tooth, and there's no connectivity up to Richmond Farm, there's no connectivity to Custer, those streets, and those are things that prior to my starting in the development review stage, those are connectivity standards that really should and probably happen. Provide that local, especially that collector street, say north, south, and east, west through those areas, and make those connections to, when you look at a mile grid, that's the neighborhood, is that mile grid. You're providing that access throughout that whole mile grid.
We've had a very wonderful knitted together neighborhood. I don't think this is gonna knit us together with other dynamics.
Go ahead, I think.
We're already connected to 3 meetings.
Yeah,
Chat question.
I have one clarification that I would like to make. What was the intersection at Hidden Pond looking like? Is it a signal or a right in, right out?
It's not a signal, there's no traffic signal there now, and it's a full movement intersection.
Okay, so there are two ways that you can get in and out on Ziegler at Hidden Pond. There is no signal. Just for the two folks that asked, and then just a one last call for questions, just specifically about this project, because we have the people here who can answer those.
You have one, or you're asking? You're to the crowd here?
I don't have one.
Okay.
I like to go back to your detention giant field there. So it sounds like it's double level.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be as deep as the other side of that roundabout there? That's really a deep one.
Probably,
So
yeah, I
it's,
mean, it's gonna be a detention pond, it's meant to detain flows off-site, control those flows before it then travels east through our project.
I mean, I just hope that it looks better than some of these that just look.
No, our intention is that.
They
that
just,
it's-
it's not grass, it's not anything usable that anybody want to play in when it's not flooded, which I don't think is. That's none of ours ever. Been around.
Yeah, so our intention is usable spot, and that's part of why we terrace, we have a very manicured section here, to be more native.
I mean, I
It's
just
really
want that
what-
it's usable.
Yeah.
And stuff.
That's
that
our
people wanna be running, pass the ball, whatever.
I know Jason might be able to explain on this, so, some of the older detention ponds have seen throughout. Some of those standards on the design have changed, so it's very like vertical, you know, kind of rectangular. There's some new standards that have applied, and these days, we can make them a little bit more natural, this looks some kind of injectors. You know, kind of this occurs in there. So, you know, I'm familiar with the one kind of just more of the buildings.
Yeah, behind.
You know, it won't necessarily look like that. I mean, it's still on the end of the day, it's gonna be, you know, kind of kitchen area. But hopefully it's not gonna be that sort of,
So we put a lot of effort into, we still had to incorporate some walls, but we actually kind of tiered them and separated them out more to kind of cushion it. And then allow the plantings to really kind of soften up that hard edge of the wall. And then
Friendly to people
along
and it's not.
along the sidewalks, along the edges, we really are kind of articulating that walk, so it's not just like this square wall or slope of the pond, but that it really does meander and it's a lot softer field than just a rectangular square.
But again, is the
And
thought
then-
that it could be used.
The intention of us tiering it was to kind of, the more frequent storms would be down in the lower portion, and then you can utilize the upper area. You know, 100-year storm, it would get inundated. The 10-year storm, all the water would stay down low, so that the upper portion would still be usable.
And the whole question is that paint, right?
Yeah, but it's still,
But even the edges of it will be usable, potentially in that 10-year.
I mean,
And
there's this giant thing that looks like it could be a great,
and then while
you
we're,
know, field that everyone can play in.
A big
unless it's-
priority to
Unless the water
require
goes back in.
with the cities, with engineering, is that it's a detention pond, so it has to be served as a detention pond. We're doing things as Brian and Jason alluded to.
Yeah, but it
to
can
soften
serve
it up
both purposes.
as
can't it?
best as we can.
that's the intention of the design, is to serve them.
Then you have.
Yes.
Oh, sorry,
this
you
is
might
a
not.
question for the traffic. Looking at the main roads, so we're looking at the same, there, of course, to the current roundabout that's there. I think I speak for many, it's already congested. Your cars that are lined up north, south, west, even to enter it. And I know I live, kind of in the middle of English Ranch. And I literally go out of my way to move up to Horse so I can get into the roundabout flow. Otherwise, I'm sitting there and I'll never get that. Can't get to work on time. Or I go down to Ziegler and wait, there's no way I'm gonna turn left. So then I'll have to go all the way around and then do a U, or it's already congested, and that's without 600, almost 600 more units of traffic coming in. So I guess what I'm saying, you know, for myself, probably for those in English Ranch that are also experiencing this, is to please
have that be part of your traffic study, because it's congested there.
So just outside of this development, capital engineering folks are already looking at, so there's two things. One, so there's some talk originally about the development of the northeast corner of that intersection, the links back in there. That hasn't been in fruition. We haven't seen anything from that developer in years. There's some talk on, okay, when they develop possible improvements at the roundabout. We're not seeing that happen, so our capital improvement folks are they're looking at that now for possible improvements. They'll be studying that, they know the events of data collection for the volume is see if they can improve that and what's to be done there. I don't think they've formalized the design yet for associated funding. So they don't have their capital improvements to get the funding available, and we're gonna happen if we are looking at that outside of this development.
Okay, I have one final question, comment from somebody online. They're gonna speak their comment, and then we are gonna have to cut off the meeting just to respect everybody's time this evening. Again, my email address is available for you all, so if you have questions that come up later, you can let me know. Todd, go ahead and make your comment.
Good evening. I'm Todd Arndorfer. I've been an English Ranch resident since the development was built. I'm also a member of the board of our English Ranch South HOA. And I really appreciate the time to review this development once again. So thank you for that. Thank you for the developer for explaining a lot of the details, and to the City and Planning Commission for answering a lot of questions and so forth. The one comment I'd like to make is one I've made at other meetings regarding a traffic connection through English Ranch. The a connection through English Ranch would really be an unsafe situation, especially for the children that walk back and forth to Linton Elementary and cross Kingsley. Or the connection that was proposed back when Front Range Village was built in, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, whenever that was, at the end of Kingsley. I often walk to Lowe's or to the library and take the pedestrian connection there. And even today, 10 or 15 years later, you see cars that come to that end of that cul-de-sac and realize that there's no connection to go north through English Ranch. So the comment that it would be unlikely that if there was a connection that cars would connect through English Ranch, I think really doesn't hold water, because even years and years later, there are still cars that they want to go out that way. And once they realize they can't, they do a U-turn in the cul-de-sac and go back the other way. So again, thanks for the time, and thanks for all the study that's going into this.
Thanks.
I had one, the gentleman behind me, when we were talking about the extension, he wanted clarification. He asked kind of where the water of the northwest detention pond was going to be routed, and that it wasn't coming through the English Ranch pond. And so I was just going to give him a description of, that generally it all be piped through our east-west road. In the event that there was emergency overflow, that it would be routed through our east-west road and be directed east that way. So it would not go north. Effective. Yeah.
One last thing, I hear you guys were gonna be doing solar on top, no? Oh, or was it your fourth story supposed to be like some open?
We did have a product earlier with some four decks that were done.
It's all.
Well, thank you guys. Appreciate everybody coming today.
The meeting was recorded, so that is posted on YouTube. There's a link to the YouTube page and a document at the back of the room. And as I said, I'm happy to keep anybody up to date on when this project is public here. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
Looks like that.
Nice project. It's just the road.
If you guys ever, if anybody really interested in this, kind of about it, you can go to Northfield. Our office is in Highland, right behind my office. is some of their flat condos that are elevator service, some of their townhomes, be simple, some like they actually, I mean, you guys